Welcome to the Chronicles, told by the Chronikle, cases of the missing, murdered, and unsolved. I'd like to thank everybody for joining me today, and don't forget, all source information can be found at thecertifiedroracle.com. Be sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Let's get started with Chronicle number 49, the Dorothy Jane Scott case. Journey back to 1980. Neon, oversized blazers, and big hair was totally in, right along with ripped jeans, side ponytails, and for the guys, rocking a mullet was the way to go. Going out for froyo, or frozen yogurt as it's known, was an awesome treat to get after seeing St. Elmo's Fire, The Big Chill, or Say Anything starring John Cusack. MTV was changing the way we viewed music, with Video Killed the Radio Star being the first ever music video played on the channel. If dancing's your thing, head out to dance to Super Freak, Love Shack, or Billie Jean by Michael Jackson. And don't forget to capture all the fun on your all-new disposable camera. Take your pictures, turn the whole camera into the Photoshop, and have it developed in just an hour for a lifetime of memories. For one son, he would not get to share in the small things like this with his mom. She would meet her demise at the hands of her stalker. Dorothy Jane Scott was a single mom to a 4-year-old son named Sean in 1980. She was a devout Christian, a very kind person, and would give anything to you if you needed it, if she had it. Dorothy was very dependable and hard-working. She was a secretary for Swinger's Psych Shop and the connecting business Custom John's Head Shop. Her father Jacob had previously owned the shop before selling. The new owners would keep both Dorothy and her father Jacob, who worked as kind of a maintenance man around the stores. Many people knew him around the area from this business. Dorothy lived with her aunt and son Sean in Anaheim, California, while Sean's biological father was not in the picture as he lived in Missouri. Sean was Dorothy's world. She would work and come home, and it has been said by family and friends that Dorothy did not go out. She had occasionally dated, but was not seeing anyone steadily. As one friend would describe her, she was a very dull person who lived a simple homebody lifestyle. In the early months of 1980, Dorothy began receiving phone calls at home and work from a man. Sometimes he would confess his love for Dorothy. Other times he would threaten her. Dorothy would tell her mom Vera she recognized the voice but could not put a name to it. The calls began to come more frequently. The man would tell Dorothy things she was doing during the day and the clothes she was wearing. This started to frighten her. The man even told her at one point he was stalking her. One time, the man called her and told Dorothy that he was going to cut her into tiny bits so no one would ever find her. This would scare Dorothy so much that she enrolled in karate classes and was even considering buying a gun, but decided against it as she was afraid her son would find it and hurt himself. The man called Dorothy one night and told her to go look out at her car. She did as he wanted, as she was frightened by him. When she looked on her car, she found a dead rose on her windshield. One evening, Dorothy had a staff meeting for work. She would take Sean to her parents' home, as she often did when she was at work. After her son was safe with his grandparents, she headed in for the meeting. While there, she noticed her coworker, Conrad Bostrom, was not looking well, and he had a rash on his arm. He was clearly in discomfort. After seeing the rash begin to spread and the amount of pain Conrad was in, Dorothy suggested he go to the ER. She told him she could drive him. Another co-worker would volunteer to tag along. Her name was Pamela Heed. The trio would head out in Dorothy's 1973 white Toyota station wagon. Upon arriving to the ER, Conrad was taken back for treatment as Dorothy and Pam waited in the waiting area for him. Around 11 p.m., Conrad was discharged, and Pam and Conrad went to fill his prescription in the hospital pharmacy. He had been bitten by a black widow spider, which are common in California. While they were doing this, Dorothy told them she was going to go pull the car around because Conrad was still not feeling well. Before heading out, Dorothy would stop in the ladies' room, and then she went out to get her car. After Conrad's medication was filled, he and Pam headed outside expecting to see Dorothy waiting for them, and to their surprise she was not there. Where could she be, they thought? Was she having car problems and that was delaying her? Possibly. However, after a few minutes of waiting, Conrad and Pam saw a vehicle emerge. It was Dorothy. Thank goodness, they were tired and ready to get home. As the station wagon approached, it drove fast and erratic. The high beams were on, making it difficult to tell who was driving. The car sped off out of the parking lot, and it turned right and was soon out of sight. As the car was driving away, Conrad and Pam were waving their hands and trying to get who they believed was Dorothy to come back. At this point, both believed she may have had an emergency come up and would be back for them. The pair would wait, by some accounts for an hour, by other accounts 2 hours, at the hospital for her to come back to get them, which is a bit odd to me. By this time they didn't know what to do, so they decided to call her mom and see if she was there. Vera said she had not seen Dorothy since she had stopped by earlier before taking Conrad to the hospital. This was very alarming. Conrad and Pam found hospital security and let them know what had happened. The security officer would tell them she was an adult and she would come back for them if she wanted to. It was nothing to worry about. However, she never came back for Conrad and Pam. A mere 5.5 hours after she had left the hospital parking lot, her station wagon was found in an abandoned alleyway, 10 miles from the hospital. Her station wagon, with her belongings in it, was engulfed in flames. Dorothy was not in the vehicle. Where was she? Police would continue to look for the young mother, but nothing was turning up any sign of Dorothy. After 1 week of Dorothy being gone, the phone would ring at her parents' home. Vera answered it, and it was a man on the other end, presumably the same man who had stalked and abducted her daughter. The man would ask Vera if she was related to Dorothy Jane Scott. Thinking it was a tip of some sort, or other good news, she replied, "Yes, I am." The man would say, "I've got her," and then hang up. At this point the Scotts had been quiet, as the police had told them not to talk to the media about the case. However, this call was Jacob's last straw. Something had to be done, and he felt the police were not doing their job well. He would go to the Santa Ana Register, a local newspaper, and told them of Dorothy being missing and all about the phone calls she had been receiving before she vanished. The Santa Ana Register would run a piece on Dorothy's disappearance. All was looking well when a wrench was thrown in the plans. Shortly after the piece was ran, the station would get a call. It was a man. He wanted to talk to the editor, Pat Riley. The man would tell Pat, quote, "I killed her. I killed Dorothy Scott. She was my love, and I caught her cheating with another man. She denied having someone else, so I killed her." End quote. The man then hung up. At first, Pat thought this was likely a prank call until he realized some of the things that the man knew had not been released to the public. The man calling knew she had changed from a black scarf to a red scarf the night she vanished. He knew she was at the hospital. He also knew that Conrad had been bitten by a black widow spider. The man claimed that Dorothy had called him from the hospital and told him all of this. This was something Pam would dispute. Pam told police, no way, as Dorothy had been with her the entire time, except to use the bathroom and go get the car. Is it possible Dorothy called someone else when she went to get the car and pull it around? Is that what possibly took so long? This is something we may never know. Police would question Dorothy's co-workers multiple times, turning up no new leads. They would move on to a locally known sex offenders. This would also turn up nothing. By this point, police were looking into everyone, including friends and acquaintances of Dorothy's. They looked and questioned, but nothing turned up. Where had she gone? Police were sure the man on the phone had abducted her, but who was he? Dorothy's parents wanted their daughter home. They would consult with 2 different psychics, and that would go nowhere as well. By this point, police were looking into everyone, including friends and acquaintances of Dorothy's. They looked and questioned, and nothing was turned up. Where had she gone? Police were sure the man on the phone had abducted her, but who was he? Dorothy's parents wanted their daughter home. They would consult with 2 different psychics, and that would go nowhere as well. Vera would continue to get calls from the stalker every Wednesday for the next 4 years. He would taunt her and make her suffer not knowing where her daughter was. It seemed he got great pleasure out of this. The Scotts would allow the police to tap their phone to try to get a location on the man. However, he knew just when to hang up, so his call was not traced. It should be noted some articles say the police did capture a recording of his voice. It seemed the man would only call on the days he knew Jacob was not home. This meant he was now watching Dorothy's parents and possibly her son. One Wednesday when the man called, Jacob answered. The man said nothing and hung up. Why? Was he afraid Jacob may recognize his voice as Dorothy almost had? In late August of 1984, 4 years after she vanished, a construction worker found some remains in the brush off Santa Ana Canyon Road. He would alert the police of this discovery. Police arrived on the scene and found a pelvis, an arm, 2 thighs, and a skull. With the remains, they found animal bones. Someone had buried Dorothy beneath a dog and left her there for 4 years. Dental records would confirm her parents' worst fears. Their daughter had been murdered. Although the coroner could not determine a cause of death, it was likely her body had been there for over 2 years. When the remains were found, police also discovered a turquoise ring and a wristwatch that was stopped at 12:30 a.m. on May 28, 1980, a mere hour and a half after Dorothy vanished. Soon reports would go out in the papers about the discovery, and as soon as they did, Vera received 2 more phone calls. The man would ask in a sarcastic voice if Dorothy was home, and then hang up. These were the last 2 calls the parents would receive from the man. Was he dead? Did he get locked up for another crime? Or possibly moved out of state? These are all questions that do not have answers, as police still do not know who the man calling was. There has been one theory that has been heard around town. A man named Mike Butler had a sister who worked at the psych shop. It is said he lived in the mountains and was not a very stable individual. Some say he became obsessed with Dorothy. Some also say he was involved in cult activity. Dorothy's son Sean believes this is who could have stalked and killed his mom. It was known that Jacob had been around Mike at the store and would recognize his voice. Thus why the man who called hung up when Jacob answered. There is no hard evidence to back up this theory, and for now it's just a rumor and a piece of the puzzle left unsolved. There have not been any new leads in Dorothy's case since the remains were found. Her parents have since passed on, and her son is now an adult. Sean had to grow up without the joy of his loving mother. Will he ever know what happened to her and who took her from him when he was so young? Let's help Sean find out who killed his mother and get justice for Dorothy. If you have any information on this case, please call the Orange County Sheriff's Coroner's Department at 714-647-7000. As always, thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe so I can continue helping families of the missing, murdered, and unsolved. This is the Chronikle signing off.